Today's the fourth day of this December 1983 7-day retreat. And we will read from a book which is called Swampland Flowers, Letters and Lectures of Zen Master Dawi, translated by Christopher Cleary. Dawi was a Chinese Zen teacher, lived in the 12th and 11th century. It says here in his biography that he once asked his teacher how he came to an awakening. And the teacher reported how he had asked his teacher the following question: how is it when the tree falls and the vines wither? How is it when the tree falls and the vines wither? And the answer had been, it comes along with it, or it goes along with it. It says here in this biography, at these words, Dawi was released, saying, I understand. And his understanding having come in considering this matter of birth and death, we find very often in his letters to lay people, and this is what this book is mostly consisting of, letters by Dawi to lay officials, usually government officials. He often mentions, bring up this matter of life and death, or if you want to understand this matter of birth and death. Because for him it had been an urgent concern, an all-powerful concern and inquiry. We don't have the letters that were written to him, so one can only assume at times what it was that was written to him from his reply. Here's a letter that is entitled Stillness and Commotion. Having read your letter carefully, or let me say too that at times I leave out words or sentences or whole paragraphs. Having read your letter carefully, I've come to know that you are unremitting in your conduct, that you're not carried away by the press of official duties, that in the midst of swift-flowing streams you vigorously examine yourself. Far from being lax, your aspiration to the path grows even more firm as time goes on. You have fulfilled my humble wishes solidly and profoundly. Nevertheless, worldly passions are like a blazing fire. When will they ever end? Right in the midst of the hubbub, you mustn't forget the business of the bamboo chair and the reed cushion. Symbols for sitting in that pod at that time in China. Usually to meditate, you set your mind on a still concentration point, but you must be able to use it right in the midst of the hubbub. If you have no strength amidst commotion, after all, it's as if you've never made any effort in stillness. I've heard that there was some complicated situation in the past, and now you're experiencing the sadness of the outcome. Alone, you do not dare to hear your fate. An ancient worthy said, If you can recognize the inherent nature while going along with the flow, there's neither joy nor sorrow. Or joy is what it is and sorrow is what it is, neither clung to nor escaped from. Experienced fully without thoughts of keeping it or getting rid of it. The thoughts are there, can they be seen for what they are? Thoughts. Now he quotes Vimalakirti, who was a layman at the time of the Buddha's life. Vimalakirti said, it's like this. The high plateau does not produce lotus flowers. It is the mire of the low swamplands that produces these flowers. A lotus flower growing on a muddy pond. Leaves and flowers floating on top of it, and the roots right in the morass. There's a koan in which a monk asks the teacher, what is the lotus flower before it comes out of the mud? And the answer is a lotus flower. And what is it after it comes out of the mud? The answer is a lotus flower. Dawi goes on, if you consider quietude right, meaning the purity of quietude, right, and commotion wrong, then this is seeking the real aspect by destroying the worldly aspect. Seeking nirvana, the peace of extinction, apart from birth and death, or the hubbub of life. When you like the quiet and hate the hubbub, this is just the time to apply effort. Suddenly, when in the midst of hubbub you topple the scene of quietude, that power surpasses the meditation seat and cushion by 1,000,000 billion times. When you topple the scene of quietude, it is this attachment that can grow to the scene of quietude. It's becoming an escape, an attachment, a nest, which of course one fears to lose, one tries to protect, and this is the same routine in a new garb. Which doesn't mean one must produce all kinds of noises and clanky things during a retreat in order to produce hubbub. We've got it 51 weeks or 48 weeks of the year. So to come to these insights and understandings needs some quietness most of the time. At least to become aware of the hubbub of the mind. To look into that. Doesn't happen while there's total involvement in it, inside and out. Here's another one which is entitled, Don't Cling to Stillness.
Once you have achieved peaceful stillness of body and mind, you must make earnest effort. Do not immediately settle down in peaceful stillness. In the teachings, this is called the deep pit of liberation, much to be feared. You must make yourself turn freely like a gourd floating on the water, independent and free, not subject to restraints, entering purity and impurity without being obstructed or sinking down. Danger of reading or hearing something like this, that an ideal may be set up in the mind of how one should be flexible like a gourd floating on the water, where one feels as heavy as a nailed down something or other. Then to question or attend to that, to the heaviness, the stuckness, rather than bringing up images of a floating gourd. And this effort that is talked about is not the effort of willpower. I must achieve that gourd-like state, but attending, which is arduous because we do want to float. To drift, to fantasize, to relax. And relaxation in this work one becomes aware of usually means thinking, as absurd as it sounds. So to attend, to question, bring up the mu or the who or what is it, rather than drifting with the fantasies, which are so much more pleasant. That's effort, that's arduous. Although there are times when it's no effort at all. One wonders what all this talk of effort is all about. Because effort always still implies some kind of a resistance through which one has to break. But if resistance is questioned, what is it? It is attended to, it is allowed to be there, and just questioning it, or who? It doesn't need to be broken through. It will open up on its own. Because it is not fought or opposed or maligned. Here's a letter which is called The Great Affair. And Dawi writes, "This affair is like the bright sun in the blue sky, shining clearly, changeless and motionless, without diminishing or increasing. It shines everywhere in the daily activities of everyone, appearing in everything. Though you try to grasp it, you cannot get it. Though you try to abandon it, it always remains. It is vast and unobstructed, utterly empty. Like a gourd floating on water, it cannot be reined in or held down. Since ancient times, when good people of the path have attained this, they have appeared and disappeared in the sea of birth and death, able to use it fully. There is no deficit or surplus. Like cutting up sandalwood, each piece is it." Where do the passions of birth and death arise from? Where can it be located? Students of the path who do not understand this are always going to the stories of people of old entering the path, looking for mysteries and subtleties and marvels, seeking interpretations and understanding. They're unable to see the moon and forget the pointing finger, unable to cut directly through with one blow. This is what Yang called understanding the empty fist, as though there were actually something in it, falsely making up wonders within the senses and their objects. At this time, there's just been a lump of flesh born of your parents. Unless you come up with a bit of energy, it is subject to the control of others. A very simple way of putting it. A lump of flesh born of one's parents, unless one comes up with some energy, meaning the energy of attention, of awareness of what's happening with this lump of flesh. If there's no awareness, one is subject to the control of others, the control and, one may add, the exploitation of others. Because in the lump there is fear. And when there's fear, one is open to exploitation. Trying to find a haven, a comfort, a teacher, something to allay the fear. Why not look at the fear? So there may be freedom from it in the looking. Freedom from it meaning no need to escape. One can be with it. One is free to be with it. To let it be. Without running away. And looking very, very carefully, one will find that the fear is already the running, the withdrawing, the avoiding. And mixed in it are ideas of what one is afraid of. Not the real thing. The real thing has never been faced. Taoyi continues, what else is there outside the lump of flesh? What can you hold to be wonderful, mysterious, or marvelous?
Enlightenment. What can you take to be enlightenment or nirvana? You wanted to investigate this affair to the end, but from the first you have not gotten to the root of its reality. You just wanted to seek knowledge and understanding from the public cases of the ancients. Even if you had a thorough knowledge and understanding of the entire Buddhist canon, on the last day of your life when birth and death comes upon you, you won't be able to use it at all. There's another sort. As soon as they hear a wise advisor speak of such an affair, they still use their conceptual mind to figure it out and say, if it's like this, then won't I fall into emptiness? Ten out of 10 gentlemen of affairs entertain this kind of view. I have no choice but to tell them, you haven't ever reached emptiness, so what are you afraid of? It's as if you're trying to leap out of the water before the boat has capsized. When I say that, they don't understand, and I don't spare mouthwork, but try once more to create trailing vines for them. Meaning all words are trailing vines, which can wrap one up, encase one into a new kind of straitjacket if the words aren't seen through. What they point at is realized. So this is what he says then. This one who fears falling into emptiness, has he been emptied or not? If your eyes aren't empty, how can you see forms? If the eyes aren't empty, How can one see a flower? A moving water, a tree, or another human being? If your ears aren't empty, how can you hear sound? If your nose isn't empty, how can you smell scents? If your tongue isn't empty, how can you taste flavors? If your body isn't empty, how can you feel contact? If your intellect isn't empty, how can you distinguish the myriad phenomena? All the doctrines preached by the Buddha, enlightenment, nirvana, true thusness, Buddha nature, along with those those who expound these doctrines, and those who listen to these doctrines, those who make up these teachings, and those who accept these teachings, none of these exist. When you reach such a realization, do you call it empty or not empty? When men of power want to investigate this one great affair to the end, they all break down their facades and with bold spirit draw their spines up. Do not go along with the feelings of others. Take your own constant point of doubt and stick it on your forehead. Always be as if you owed someone millions with nothing to repay, with nothing to repay with when pressed for payment. Fearful of humiliation by others. What that means in China we saw the other day in a movie. Only thus will you have some direction in the task of finding urgency where there is no urgency, getting busy where there is no pressure, and finding importance where there is no importance. Work diligently day and night, while eating and drinking, when joyful or angry, in clean places or unclean places, in family gatherings, when entertaining guests, when dealing with official business in your post, when concluding a betrothal. All of these are first-class times to make efforts to arouse and alert yourself and awaken. When has it ever been necessary to leave wife and children, quit one's job, chew on vegetable roots? And cause pain to the body? Those of inferior aspiration shun clamor and seek quietude. Thence they enter the ghost cave of the dead tree Zen, entertaining false ideas that only thus can you awaken to the path. As a gentleman of affairs, your study of the path differs greatly from mine as a home leaver. Leavers of home do not serve their parents and abandon all their relatives for good. With one jug and one bowl and daily activities according to circumstances, there are not so many enemies to obstruct the path, meaning obstacles. With one mind and one intent, home leavers just investigate this affair thoroughly. But when a gentleman of affairs opens his eyes and his mind and is mindful of what he sees, there is nothing that is not an enemy spirit blocking the path. If he has wisdom, he makes his meditational effort right there. As Vimalakirti said, the companions of passions are the progenitors of the Buddhas. I fear that people will destroy the worldly aspect to seek the real aspect. He also made a comparison. It is like the high plateau not producing lotus flowers. It is the mud of the low-lying marshlands that produces these flowers. Here's a letter that's entitled Profound Clarity. A patriarch said, as long as there is mental discrimination and calculating judgment, all the perceptions of one's own mind are dreams. If mind and consciousness are quiescent and extinct, without a single thought stirring, this is called correct awareness. Once awareness is correct, then in your daily activities, 24 hours a day, when seeing form, hearing sound, smelling scent, tasting flavor, feeling touch, or knowing phenomena, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, whether speaking or silent, active or still, there's nothing that's not profound clarity. Does not mean there's never a thought in the mind. As in daily life, for a gentleman or a gentlewoman of affairs, there's great need for clear thinking. And of course, fantasies come up. The conditioned mind is not cut out of the brain. The cortex, it's nonsense to think that at all times the brain is quiet and there's no thought stirring. It is that it is not fought, opposed, repressed. And if one is caught up in it, one is caught up in it. But awareness can dawn at any one point, at any time. And then what's the state of the mind? That's important. Seeing, listening, hearing where one is, being in touch, or condemning one's thoughts, or thinking one should have no thought stirring in the mind. And when you don't engage in wrong thinking, all is pure whether there is thinking or not. Once you've attained purity, when active you reveal the function of profound clarity, and when inactive you return to the essence of profound clarity. Though essence and function are distinguished, the profound clarity is one. Like when you cut up sandalwood, each and every piece is sandalwood. These days there's a kind of phony whose own standpoint is not genuine. They just teach people to control their minds and sit quietly, to sit to the point where the breath ceases. I call this lot pitiable. I'm asking you to meditate in just this way, but though I instruct you like this, it's just that there's no other choice. If there really were something to work on in meditation this way, it would defile you. This mind has no real substance. How can you forcibly bring it under control? If you try to bring it under control, where do you put it? Since there's no place to put it, there's no times or seasons, no past or present, no ordinary people or sages, no gain or loss, no quiet or confusion. There's no name of profound clarity, and no essence of profound clarity, and no function of profound clarity, no one who speaks thus of profound clarity, and no one to hear such talk of profound clarity. Here it says, before seeking. You've indicated you want me to instruct you by letter in the direct essentials. This very thought This very thought of seeking instruction in the direct essentials has already stuck your head into a bowl of glue. Though I shouldn't add another layer of frost to the snow, nevertheless, where there's a question, it shouldn't go unanswered. I ask you to abandon at once all the joy you've ever felt in reading the words of the scriptures, or when being aroused and instructed by others. Be totally without knowledge and understanding as before, like a 3-year-old child. Though the innate consciousness is there, it doesn't operate. Then contemplate what's there before the thought of seeking the direct essential arises. Then contemplate what's there before the thought of seeking arises. Contemplate meaning not contemplating and not thinking about it. One is working on mu or who or what is it. Can that be put before the next thought arises? Or can there be attention before the next thought arises? Or after this last thought has arisen? Not thinking about the thoughts, but what is it? Or listening without knowing what's going to be next. As you feel you're losing your grip more and more, and your heart is more and more uneasy, don't give up and slack off. This is the place to cut off the heads of the 1,000 sages. Students of the path often retreat at this point, at the point where one loses one's grip more and more, and the heart is more and more uneasy. And one may add anxiety or scariness arises. Just keep contemplating what's before the thought of seeking instruction in the direct essentials arises. Suddenly, you will awaken from your dream, and there won't be any mistake about it. This one says, don't consciously await enlightenment. Whether you're happy or angry, in quiet or noisy places, you still must bring up Joshu's or Chaochu's saying, a dog has no Buddha nature, or or who, or what is it? Or attention. Listening. Looking. Without immediately recognizing everything as being such and so, and I know it, and this is how it always has been. Not that one says this all to oneself, but this is the automatic mechanism of the brain when there's no energy gathered in attention. Above all, don't consciously await enlightenment. If you consciously await enlightenment, you're saying, right now I'm deluded. If you wait for enlightenment, clinging to delusion, though you pass through countless eons, you will still not be able to gain enlightenment. As you bring up the saying, just arouse your spirit and see what it is. The saying here is, he gives this koan, the whole koan, has the dog a Buddha nature or not. It doesn't matter what is brought up. What's life? What's truth? What is reality? What's the meaning of this life? Or just simply what's happening? Constantly take the two concerns, not knowing where we come from at birth and not knowing where we go at death, and stick them on the point of your nose. That's his way of instructing. It doesn't mean everybody has to stick something at the point of their nose. Then there's the trouble. Do I stick it into my abdomen or on my nose? And then there's great conflict. no need to stick anything anywhere. Let it settle where it settles. Whether eating or drinking, whether in quiet or noisy places, make scrupulous effort from moment to moment, always as if you owed someone millions with no way out. Your heart sorely troubled with no opening to escape. That's important, no opening to escape. We always find that opening if it's as tiny as a pinhole. If it's just a word of explanation about our condition, it's already an escape from the condition itself. Giving oneself a position report. We do that. Can it be seen and evaporate so that there's no knowing where we are, and be in touch with the uncertainty? The breathing is there, the hu or mu. There. What is everything if I was robbed of all words? I forgot all that I'd ever known or experienced. Then what is this instant? This moa hu? Searching for birth, it cannot be found. Searching for death, it cannot be found. At such a moment, the roads of good and evil are immediately blocked off. When your awareness has gotten like this is precisely the time to apply effort. Contemplate the story right there. A monk asked Joshua, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? And Joshua replied, no, or mu, or wu in Chinese. As you contemplate this mu or who or what, don't try to figure it out. Don't try to explain it. Don't demand clear understanding. Don't take it verbally. Don't construe the raising of it as the principle. Don't fall into empty quiescence. Don't consciously anticipate enlightenment. Don't take your explanation from your understanding from the explanations of the teachers of the school. And don't drop it into the bag of unconcern. Whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, just constantly question mu, who, or what is it? Or attend without knowing. When you can keep your attention on it fully, when verbal discussion and intellectual consideration cannot reach, and your heart is agitated, when it's like gnawing on an iron spike without any flavor, then don't falter in your intent. When you get like this, after all, it's good news. Haven't you read the ancient worthies saying, Buddha preached all teachings to save all minds. I have no mind at all, so what's the use of any teaching? Sentient beings' obstruction by evil deeds is serious. No sooner do they get out of bed each day than their minds fly around in confusion. Thinking of fame and profit, they take up the false concepts of others and self, continuing unbroken like the links of a chain from morning till night, without ever growing tired of it. If perchance they think of entering our school, they think about it intellectually and immediately want to understand it themselves. Since the judgments of the mind's conceptual discrimination do not apply here, they get annoyed and already want to give up, saying, what reason is there? people like this are beyond counting. But you're not this way, Shunyuan, companion of the path. Knowing all the empty falsehoods of this defective world with singleness of mind and intent, you want to understand where we come from when we were born and where we go to when we die, right where you are. Since you don't know where we come from, you don't know where we go either. Wait till you're like a man drinking water who knows for himself whether it's cold or warm and doesn't accept the judgment in the mouth of someone else. Then, for the first time, you give your own approval. Haven't you read how in the old days Master Tzu-Yu said, "The patriarchs coming from the west only means that winter is cold and summer is hot. Night is dark and day is light. It's just that you vainly set up meaning where there is no meaning, create concern where there is no concern, impose inside and outside where there is no inside and no outside, and talk endlessly of this and that where nothing exists." You've never come to my place seeking words of instruction, and I have never written a single word for you. Winter is cold, summer is heat, night's darkness, day's light, inside and outside, in between, east, west, south, north, have never varied, never increased or decreased the least little bit. Existence cannot be grasped. Non-existence cannot be grasped either. Winter's cold and summer's heat cannot be grasped. Inside, outside, and in between cannot be grasped, meaning grasped intellectually. The one who speaks like this cannot be grasped. The one who hears such talk cannot be grasped either. Not even a fine hair can be grasped. Neither you nor I can be grasped. Amidst ungraspability, apprehending things this way, when you get to this point, how will you seek? Even this "how will you seek" has no applicability. Hence these words too are not acceptable. Since these words are not acceptable, I certainly have nothing to say, and you certainly have nothing to hear. No speech is true speech, and no hearing is true hearing. Someone said, in the future, if you want to propagate the great teaching, it must flow out point by point from within your own breast to cover heaven and earth. Only then will it be the action of a person of power. That which flows out from one's own breast, as he calls it, is one's own beginningless present awareness, fundamentally complete in itself. As soon as you arouse a second thought, you fall into comparative awareness.
Comparative awareness is something gained from external refinements. Present awareness is something from before your parents were born, which means in that there's no time. Power gained within present awareness is strong. The translator uses power for what we call energy. Power gained within present awareness is strong. Power gained from comparative awareness is weak. This affair is not a matter of intelligence or acuity, nor does it lie in dull faculties and shallow understanding. Actually, it's just an abrupt bursting out that's the criterion. As soon as you've attained this scene, then whatever words and phrases you have, they're not established apart from what's real. When where they're established is real, this is the so-called flowing out from within one's own breast to cover heaven and earth. It's just like this. It's not making up sayings, looking for something extraordinary, so other people will be speechless and consider your beautiful thoughts and flowery speech and pointed new ideas as flowing out from your breast. Here he says, just because it's so very close, you cannot get this truth out of your own eyes. When you open your eyes, it strikes you, and when you close your eyes, it's not lacking either. When you open your mouth, you speak of it, and when you shut your mouth, it appears by itself. But if you try to get it by stirring your mind, you've already missed it by 18,000 miles. You report that since you received my letter, whenever you run into something inescapable amidst the hubbub, you've been examining yourself constantly, but without applying effort to meditate. This very inescapability itself is meditation. Inescapability of pain, fear, loneliness, anxiety, anger, stuckness, whatever is the condition. Here, Taoyi says this very inescapability itself is meditation. If you go further and apply effort to examine yourself, you're even further away, meaning thinking about it. Bestirring the mind isn't it. Right when you're in something inescapable, do not bestir your mind and think of examining it. Meaning you're thinking about it, trying to figure it out. Someone said when discrimination doesn't arise, the light of emptiness shines by itself. Again, layman Peng said, in daily activities without discrimination, meaning choicelessly with it. I alone naturally harmonize, not grasping or rejecting anywhere, not going with or going against. Who considers crimson and purple honorable? There's not a speck of dust in the mountains. spiritual powers and wondrous functioning, hauling water and carrying firewood. We'll end here for today.